So, what we're going to do today is deconstruct a blueprint for a brand new society. We're looking at a pretty fascinating and, frankly, extreme constitutional document. Our goal here is to just neutrally break it all down. Everything from who gets to vote to what kind of money you can even use. All right, you have to start right here with this opening clause, because it is the absolute foundation for everything else that follows. This is not a living document, not at all. It's setting the stage for a system that's designed from the ground up to be completely rigid, unchanging. Think of it as a permanent set of instructions, locked in stone. So here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll break it down into 5 key areas. We'll start with that unchangeable foundation. Then look at how it defines a citizen, explore its strict social rules, dig into its hardline economic model, and finally wrap up with its system of government. Okay, first up, let's really dig into the bedrock rules that govern the Constitution itself. These are the principles that make it so different from almost any other in the modern world. So what this all means is that the Constitution is basically designed to be a permanent, inflexible operating system. There's no Supreme Court to reinterpret things over time, and it can't just adapt to global norms. In fact, every single international treaty requires a direct national vote from the people. All right, so with that unchangeable foundation in place, let's talk about the people. Now we're going to see who actually gets to be a citizen and, maybe more importantly, who really holds the power in this country. You see, citizenship here isn't something you can just apply for. It is strictly inherited. Being born in the country is step 1, sure, but that's not enough. For you to become a citizen, both of your parents had to be citizens at the moment you were born. And this is where things get really interesting. You need to understand this term, net taxpayer. This isn't just some economic definition on a page. It is the absolute key to understanding who has a voice and who actually gets to hold political power in country X. And here's the direct consequence, the real-world impact of that definition. The right to vote is explicitly handed to that specific economic class of net taxpayers. But look at who can't vote. Anyone who gets their income from the state, politicians, judges, bureaucrats, they're all barred. It creates this really stark separation. And what about everybody else? Well, if you're living in country X, but you don't meet those strict citizenship criteria, you're considered a resident, but with severely limited rights. You can't own land, can't go to school, and you have absolutely no permanent claim to stay in the country. Okay, so we know who the citizens are and who gets to vote. Now let's dive into the pretty strict social code that everyone is expected to live by. Think about this number for a second, 40. It's not just a number, it dictates a very specific life path for all women in the country. According to this constitution, working or going to college is tied directly to 2 things, reaching the age of 40 and having had at least 2 children. You can see how the blueprint is designed to enforce a single monolithic culture. It does this by constitutionally banning any religious practice whatsoever, making English the only language you're allowed to use, and forbidding any flag other than the national one. And it goes even further than culture. The Constitution is incredibly direct here. It explicitly defines the state along ethnic lines. This idea is then enforced with a really strict cap on immigration and an absolute ban on anyone seeking asylum. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about money. The blueprint lays out this very unique and rigid financial system, and it's a world away from how most modern economies work. So get this, the entire economy runs on physical precious metals. 15-gram coins of pure gold or silver are the only legal currency. And that means all the modern financial tools we take for granted, from credit cards to bank transfers to crypto, are completely outlawed. And the tax system? It's brutally simple. There are just 4 flat taxes, and that includes a massive, permanent 50% tariff on anything imported. The whole point here is simplicity. No deductions, no write-offs, no subsidies. Everyone and every company pays the same flat rate. So when you add all this up, what do you get? You get a core principle. The government is constitutionally forbidden from intervening in the private market. No bailouts, no loan guarantees, strict limits on debt. It's a hardline free market ideology written right into the nation's DNA. All right, for our final piece of the puzzle, let's look at the machinery of government itself. How is power actually structured? And what are the checks and balances in this pretty unique system? The whole structure is really streamlined into 4 parts. You've got a president who handles foreign affairs, a single 100-member House for all domestic laws, and a tiny bureaucracy to implement them. And interestingly, that bureaucracy is explicitly banned from giving policy advice. That job is reserved for a separate council of academics. And this is a fascinating mechanism for accountability, aimed directly at the judiciary. Any judge at any level can be immediately fired if a petition gets 100,000 verified signatures from the voting class, the net taxpayers.
What's also really interesting is what's missing. There are no state governments, no provinces, nothing like that. The whole middle tier of government is just gone. Power exists at the national level and then way down at the small, local level. That's it.
And as you might expect, holding high office is tied directly back to that net taxpayer status we talked about. To even run, candidates need to be citizens with a university degree, sure, but they also have to prove they've been a major contributor in the private sector for years. So let's pull it all together. What have we seen? We've seen a complete blueprint for a society that's built on a foundation of permanence, a strict hierarchy where power is reserved for net taxpayer citizens, a single enforced culture, a rigid hands-off economy, and a super centralized government. You know, this document is an incredible thought experiment, all laid out in detail. It's one version of what a new society could look like, frozen in text. And it really leaves you with one big, unavoidable question to think about. What happens when permanence runs headfirst into progress?